Welcome to Belmont Banter, the official podcast of Whitstable Town FC. Every week we chat to ex-players, supporters and invited guests here on Belmont Banter.
Welcome to the official podcast of Whitstable Town FC.
Whitstable Town Football Club's main sponsor is Fibertech UK Limited.
Hello again everyone and welcome to Belmont Banter, and today we've got Kevin Sugrue on the other end of the line. Now Kevin has, I understand, a lifelong affinity to Beckenham Town. That's what I've been told, but I've got no idea where Kevin's football journey started. So Kevin, first of all, good morning buddy, and where did it start for you and how old were you?
Well, in terms of playing, most people say that they can't believe I was ever any good at football. No one could have deteriorated that much. But the height of my football prowess was when I was about 10. And and then I think I was okay. I had ambitions of, being a footballer, but I went steadily downhill, from playing for the school. Actually, I played for the senior school. Yeah. It was my junior senior school. When I was 10, so the boys I was playing against were about 15 over Hackney Marshes.
Oh wow!
And they laughed when they saw me come on the pitch. Look, he's Frex. They used to call me Frex because I got all these freckles. And so for all the bits of skill I had, all that to do was lean on me, and I was on the deck. But I played for the district at that time, which was about as good as you could get when you were a 10-year-old.
Yeah. And
then I went to, I was lucky enough to get to a grammar school, but they were not brilliant at football. And, in those days, I don't know what it was like when you were playing, but the annoying thing at school was when you had a Latin master or a maths teacher trying to tell you how to play football, not a clue.
We had a music master.
Yeah, well, it just so puts you off.
Yeah.
And I think when I was about 14, the German teacher who was in charge, and I didn't like German and he didn't like me, he sent me off, and so I stopped playing.
Oh, wow.
By the time I left school, and I loved my football, but by the time I left school, about 17, I'd just taken my A-levels. And I was looking at kids who I was much better than when I was 12, 13, and they were better than me. So I went from being a tricky right winger to a kicking centre half, which a lot of people do, I think, and just playing Sunday football. But I always had this thing about being an organiser and a bit of a leader. So at 19 years of age, I started running teams. I was working at Southwark Council, and I had a brilliant job, the best job in the council, just the best. And I was the blue-eyed boy of the chief executive. And I started up something called Southwark Sports Club, and we run Dulwich Common. And actually, that's where I first came across David Weatherhead, because I wanted to start a junior section. I ran a senior team, but I wanted to start a junior section, and I had a guy who was a neighbour of mine called Spud. He's still alive. He's about 88 now, and lives down in Kent in Kings Hill. You know that big development?
Yeah, I know it. Yeah.
And anyway, he used to scout for me.
Yeah.
The schools, because he had time to do a bit of scouting, and he came up with David and a number of other boys.
Got you back now. Yeah.
And so we started up. I ran the team that David was in, but we had a whole junior section there, right from under 9s, which I think was what David was, right through to about under 16s or something.
Yeah.
And it was brilliant. And while I was at Southwark Council, that was fine. But then in 1987, I took a job at Hackney Council, out of the frying pan.
Into the fire, yeah.
Yeah. And so, whereas before I had all the sway at Southwark Sports Club. I could do what I want. They were a tennis club and a bowls club and a cricket club and a football club and all sorts of clubs. We had a great clubhouse.
Yes.
But I used to be able to rule the roost because you know, I was the blue-eyed boy at the council. And when I left, I realised no longer could I rule the roost. And a guy who used to manage a team at Southwark Sports, a guy called Jerry Shepherd, he'd been tapping me up to move to Beckenham. So I thought, I'll give in to his tapping up. So I gave in. I moved to Beckenham. I took David and my team with me. The others all stayed, and actually they attached themselves to Dulwich Hamlet. So the Dulwich Hamlet juniors are the old Southwark Sports juniors. And anyway, I took my team with David in it, and I said to Jerry Shepherd and the other people at Beckenham Town, look, I don't want to just put a junior section together for you. I'll do that, but I will want to run a reserve team for the first team, because I want the kids to come right through and start playing for the reserve.
Pathway. Yeah,
that was it. It was the original academy. You know, we did it before Chelsea and all the others, and so that's the way it turned out. I went and ran the reserves. We were rubbish to start with, because Beckenham Town didn't have a reserves. They just had a first team when I went there. So the reserves were new. You know, we had a goalkeeper who couldn't raise his arms. And so we were getting smashed, but we started to get it together, and so I did the reserves for about 4 years, I think. When I first went there was a bloke called Bob Chilvers, who is a great friend of mine, and later worked with me with the first team. But he was the first team manager. But after a year, for I think domestic reasons, he decided to step down. Then the guy who took me to Beckenham ran the first team, Jerry Shepherd, and Jerry's a lovely fella, but he only lasted about a year. Then they appointed Mickey Wakefield. Do you remember the name?
The name Wakefield, I do remember. Yeah.
Yeah, he ran Greenwich Borough when they had Ian Wright there, and I think a fellow called Smokey Gould. Someone told me that Bright played for them as well, but I'm not sure about that. But anyway. And they won the league. So Mickey Wakefield was a good catch, you know. Anyway, he didn't set the world on fire at Beckenham. He's a nice fella, though. And I was running the results. I'll tell you something about Mickey Wakefield. Lovely fella. Couldn't count to 13, mind. Because every Saturday morning, he would ring me up and he'd say, Kev, I need 4 players. 4 players. How many players do you think I've got for the reserves? Say, no, sorry, need 4 players. And, you know, the rule was, and I was very observant of the rule, the first team came first. We were there to serve the first team. So I'd give him 4 players. I'd be on the blower to everyone I knew to try and put a reserve team together from the 4 I'd gone missing. There'd be another week when he'd say, look, I've got 17 players. You're going to have to take 4.
Oh, goodness me.
And the rule was, if you came down to the first team, you had to play.
Yes.
So I'd have to bomb 4 of the people that I'd originally selected for the reserve. So it wasn't easy, but we got by because Mickey was a lovely fellow. He was a very nice fellow. Anyway, he lasted a couple of years. Then Beckenham went for actually me and Bob Chilvers, the bloke who used to run the first team, we put a pairing together, and we put our name in the hat to run the first team. But they didn't take us. They took this fella, Tony, and another bloke, Owen was his assistant. And they did all right, and they actually brought a couple of good players with them. And I always remember they used to have Dave Sexton's coaching book on the seat in the first team dressing room, and me and Chilvers used to laugh about it.
I should think so, yeah.
However good a coach Dave Sexton was, I don't think it works when you take it out of a book like that. No. But anyway, they lasted a year, and then I think it would have been in about 1992 that I took over the first team, and Chilvers came with me as my assistant. He'd started playing for me for the reserves. Yeah. But Bob was a decent centre half. And I'll tell you a little story. I won't go on too long.
Oh no, please, you got all the time you want.
We played, when he was in the reserves, we played Greenwich Borough Reserves one. And we came in at half time, and I think we were about 5-0 down. And I lost it. I'm one of those blokes that loses it at half time. And actually the boys like me losing it because it winds them up, you know.
Yeah.
So I lost it at half time, and I looked at Chilvers and I said, Chilvers, that centre forward of theirs, I said, he's gone round you 5 times before he slotted it in the corner for that last goal. I said, just pull him over, do what you want, kick him up in the air. And I'm not like that. I never told you again. But I completely lost it. Anyway, so Chilvers said to me, he's just a good player. I said, if he was a good player, he wouldn't be playing for Greenwich Borough Reserves. Anyway, about a month later, he was playing for Crystal Palace's first team.
Oh,
David White, his name is.
Oh, right.
I don't think he's still alive, actually. But he played with Palace. He played with Charlton. Yes, he was,
he was
a good player. Yeah. But I wouldn't have it.
Cracking.
Anyway, so me and Chilvers ran the first team for a while before Chilvers again gave it up. And we had a great time. But I never professed to be a great or even a good coach. In fact, most of my boys will laugh maybe at my coaching abilities, but I tried. And when they were kids, I think I did quite well by them. But when I was with the first team, Bob did the coaching, and he's a good coach. Bob Chilvers, very, very good coach. Whatever level, he's just got a really good knack. To be a good coach, you need to challenge the players.
Yeah.
Once they've conquered one thing, don't make them do that again. Do different things. And Bob was brilliant at that. And it doesn't matter what you are. If you're a coach at anything, you need that ability to challenge people, make it interesting, and above all, you've got to have huge enthusiasm. If you coach for a couple of hours, it's actually quite difficult to keep that enthusiasm and that challenge going for a couple of hours. But Chilvers was really good at that. But he was a hopeless person manager. He'd lose it and tell people to off.
Yeah.
Whereas I'd lose it, I'd never tell people to get lost. And I think that was my skill as a people manager.
Yeah.
And David said this to me once. I'm very single-minded, so I love to play a short passing game, and we do that in training and so on. If anyone turned up, right? But on a Saturday, the pitch at Beckenham, which is now brilliant.
It is, isn't it now?
Yeah. But for all but my last year, it was the worst pitch in the league.
It was terrible.
Awful.
It was, yeah.
No way could you play a short passing game.
Nope.
So the big joke at Beckenham was that Kevin was in the channels. All I said was, you hit it in the channels. We used to practice the quickest blokes on either side making runs into the channels, ball over the top of the fullback, whip it in, people bomb into the box, and that's how we got most of our goals. But I didn't like playing that football. It's just that the pitch at Beckenham meant that you absolutely had to. So anyway, we did all right. I mean, Beckenham was at one stage they were the only team that didn't pay. But even other years when there were maybe one or two others, we never paid a penny to footballers.
Wow.
So there was never a hope in hell that we would win the league. You just couldn't.
No.
The other, and if we got a decent player, and we had some good players come through our books, they'd be off.
They'd go, yeah.
Because someone would entice them into going elsewhere for a few quid. I'll tell you another little story if you're all right with my stories.
Oh, I think they're brilliant.
We had a kid called Ricky Bennett.
Oh, I know Ricky. I've actually been trying to get Ricky on.
Oh, right. Well, he's a lovely fellow, Ricky. And he was at Southwark Sports, not in my team, but in a team a bit older than David Weatherhead and the other boys in that team. But they were a good side. And they had a number of good... Carl Leeburn, who played... Do you remember Carl?
Carl, yeah. Another name I know.
Top-level football, the old First Division, now Premier. He played for Charlton and Wimbledon. We had another lad called Michael Bennett, who played midfield for Charlton in that same team.
Whitstable Town Football Club's main sponsor is Fibertech UK Limited.
I remember going to watch a lovely footballer, Mickey. I remember going to watch Mickey, and he was marking John Barnes at Charlton against Liverpool. Yeah. And I thought, isn't that lovely? A kid that you've seen grow up, at your club, and there he is playing top-class football up against one of the best footballers this country has produced,
Ever produced, yeah, brilliant.
So I remember there was a kid called Trevor Booker, went to Millwall. There was another kid called Wes Reed, who probably was the best of all of them, but his knees went. He was at Arsenal with George Graham. He ended up playing pro football in Scotland because of his knees, and then had to back it up. But some really good footballers. Anyway, back to Ricky Bennett. So Ricky, I don't know how I tracked Ricky down, but I did. I tracked Ricky down, and he told me he was playing right wing back, and I played him right wing back, and then I could see that he was quite a good centre forward. And actually, I think someone tipped me off that he played centre forward on a Sunday. Put him up as centre forward, and he was magic.
Oh, really good. Unbelievable. Yeah,
really good kid. And so the word got round that Ricky Bennett was a good player. Anyway, we played Sittingbourne in those days. I don't know where Sittingbourne play these days, but we used to play them in the Kent League, and they sold their ground to Sainsbury's and made a load of money.
That's right.
And they went all posh, and they had a new ground built, and they employed a fella called John Ryan, used to play for Brighton, and nice fella. They were paying him a lot of money. Anyway, we went down there, we put their new ground, we played Sittingbourne, and then after the game, John Ryan came up to me and he said, Kevin, I want to be straight with you. He said, I want to sign your Ricky Bennett. So I said, oh, right, do you? Well, it's a shame, Russ, but, I can't hold the boy back. He's a good player. So he said, well, if he comes to us, he said, a couple of games a week probably to the rest of the season, he'll be earning about 250 quid a week. Well, at that time, that was probably more than Ricky was earning his full-time job.
Absolutely.
So he said, so are you all right if I approach him? So I said, well, look, the right thing to do is to speak to our secretary first, because he's the one who deals with all the transfers. But I said, thank you for being so open with me, fine with me. Peter Palmer, who I think you've spoken to, yeah?
No, I haven't. Actually, I'm going to speak to Peter hopefully later on, either this week or next week, yeah. We couldn't quite get it together, so yeah.
You can remind Peter of the story if you like. But anyway, I said, Peter's there. I said, go and speak to Peter. So he went over to Peter and he said, Peter, I've just been talking to Kevin. And he said, I should come to you. I want to sign your Ricky Bennett. So Peter said, oh, okay, what, you want to talk to him direct? He said, yeah. So Peter said, well, that's fine. Yeah, we can't hold him back. So he said to Peter, so where is Ricky? Peter said, he's outside having a fag. So John Ryan says, what, he don't smoke, does he? So Peter said, only about 40 a day. Well, he never went near him after that. Ricky didn't smoke 40 a day. Ricky had about 2 fags a day. He was trying to stop. But that's Peter. That was Peter's way of stopping John Ryan getting Ricky Bennett. And he didn't tell Ricky. I've told Ricky since that he missed out on 250 quid a week. And I've told his missus, she weren't too happy. But that's very typical Peter.
Yeah, that's brilliant.
But anyway, so as I say, we used to do okay. For a club that didn't pay a bean, we did okay. But then you'd lose people. I mean, in the end, we lost Ricky. He went to Deal Town. Good luck to him. He ended up playing in the FA Vase final at Wembley.
Yeah,
you know, you can't odds that. You can't stop someone making progress like that. But we used to finish in top 10. You know, I think the best we ever got was about 6th. It wasn't until my last season that we started paying. And it's the worst season I had. The worst. The worst because people weren't interested in improving. You know, I would say to them, look, what we need to do in training is you need to learn how to be out wide when we're attacking, tuck in when we're defending, or something like that. And they say, okay, I must be worth another tenner. I must be worth another tenner a week. And that's all they go on about, money. You know, different players, not David, not the boys I brought up, but the others, just money, drove me mad. So I didn't like it. The fellow who put the money in didn't want me at the club anyway. And I think all he wanted Beckenham for really was to help him with Fisher. He was a fisherman. You know, but fair enough. He put his money in, and I can't knock that. But it was the worst season. But anyway, I mean, we made 4 cup finals along the way. 2 with the reserves, 2 with the first team. Lost the lot. So I'm obviously a man for the big occasion. Yeah, and we used to. Bob was brilliant because Bob used to get us to dress up. We used to wear white suits with a red tie. You know, they're Beckenham colours with red. So we wear a white suit with a red tie. And I remember coming home from one of the finals we lost, and there was a kid called Terry Barry who went on to play with VCD. And Terry said to me, Kev, I don't think you should wear that suit anymore if we get to another final. And I said to him, why, Terry? Are you superstitious? He said, no, it's because you look a prat.
Oh dear, oh dear. So was it a bit like the Liverpool FA Cup suit, all in white and all that sort of stuff?
That's it, yeah.
Oh my God.
That was brilliant. But we had some brilliant times there, and we had a great social scene at Beckenham. You know, players would stay on for hours and hours after the games. A lad called Norman Bungay, he never went home at all. He used to sleep at the club, and you wouldn't dare put him back in his car anyway. But we had some great times, and every year we used to go away. You know, during the summer for a weekend, like not far, Bournemouth or Brighton or somewhere. And, we got some stories, some brilliant times. Yeah, it was a great crack. But one of the things I'm most proud about, going back to David, is that some of those boys who were in my team, David and the boy I made captain, Matthew Belton, he was a born captain, you know, a leader from the age of 8, 9 years of age. But some of those boys stayed with me all the way through and, you know, played with Beckenham Town's first team, including David. And that's lovely. I mean, I feel so good that I was able to take kids right through from 9 years of age, right through until they were about 30 odd before they retired. So they were with me all that time. So that's fantastic. And they're my friends. You know, David's a friend, and the other boys are friends. And the other thing about the importance of junior football, which is sort of this academy theme, is that there were boys from other teams from the junior section, not just my team, who'd go away, you'd lose track of them, but they know you, they'd know Beckenham Town, and suddenly they'd appear again.
Yeah, it's lovely.
So that's a great source of players, just because they'd had a connection with you at some time in their life. And the final thing that makes me very proud is that of all those boys that I had in that team that David was in, they all turned out good.
Yeah.
Now, I have this belief that team games are fantastic for building life skills that serve you well in later life. And the biggest influence, I think, as a life skill is sharing failure. It's not the success; it's what you do when you don't succeed.
Yeah.
And you have to support each other. And I can remember there was a kid in our team years ago, a boy called Kevin Roberts. I had this thing about every boy should have a go at playing centre half at some point, because that taught them how to head a ball. You had to head a ball if you were. Well, I know it's banned now, but kids don't want to head a ball, do they? Their shoulders go up, but the eyes get closed. Yeah, they don't really want to hit it. So I put him at the back, and he made an error, and the other team scored, and he was in tears. But the way all the other boys supported him, they're just fantastic.
That's good, isn't it?
And that's a sort of microcosm of the huge effect, I think, that team games can have in building life skills like that serve you well in later life. That you support people, you're kind to people, you sympathise with people, you empathise with people. They're brilliant for that. I mean, single sports, you can become like golfers. You can become very self. But if you're in a team sport, you can't do that. You've got to support your teammates. So that's the thing that makes me most proud. And we had some really good kids. I mean, at the end, we had a very good junior team. Jason Newell, do you know Jason Newell?
That name I know, yeah.
He played, and he not. I wouldn't ever take any credit for Jason Newell. He came to us late. He was already at Wimbledon, but what a nice lad. Really good lad. You could tell he was going to make it because he wanted to kick with his left foot. He wanted to kick with his right foot. He wanted to be quicker. He wanted to be good in the air. The attitude was fantastic.
Yeah.
So. Yeah, brilliant. I love the football, and I'm really pleased with what I was able to contribute. Yeah.
Are you do you still get down the club at all?
No, I don't actually. I'll tell you why. Because I was there for like 20 years or something, and I just think if I was there and I started walking around maybe the change rooms or something, and someone said, "Oi, who are you?" I'd lose it. It would so upset me that I'd lose it. I go down there for that celebrate. We had a get together just the other week with some of the old players that we haven't seen for years. It was fantastic.
Good.
It was some great memories. Absolutely great memories.
Yeah. That's really good. Well, I've thoroughly enjoyed it. I've never met you. I actually, as soon as you came on screen, because we're doing this on a Zoom call, I recognised you, and I thought, wow, I do know you from somewhere, and it's obviously got to be Beckenham.
How long have you been associated with Whitstable?
About 25 years.
Yeah, well, I would have seen you. I mean, Joe, is Joe still there?
Well, actually, Joe he's the president of the club now, but he's unwell at the moment. He's had a couple of operations. Yeah, we haven't, because of COVID as well, we haven't seen him for a couple of years, but he still keeps in contact. I'll give him a call as well. So
lovely man. If you see him, speak to him, remind me to him. Lovely man. He was always very polite, very generous to me. He had it. You can remind him. We had a centre half called Paul Gale. We called him Gailey.
Yeah.
He's about 6'4", 5", and skinny as a rake, and. He'll hate me for this, but he can't kick a ball. He can't play, but he was so difficult to get past because he had these huge long legs, And Joe liked Gailey Joe always said how good a centre-half Gailey was.
Yeah.
And he was right to see that because, as I say, he couldn't do 200 keep-the-uppies like Wenger-type players, but he was a very effective centre-half, and Joe always liked Gailey.
Oh, lovely. I will remind him. Actually, I'll give him a ring after I've spoken to you, after we finished here, because I need to catch up with him anyway. So,
right.
Well, I'll tell you what, it's been fantastic. So we finished on a player that probably had legs like a giraffe, couldn't kick a football, but nobody could get by him.
Absolutely.
Wonderful. And your tribute to David Weatherhead, well, he's going to love that because he's a lovely lad, isn't he? A bit misunderstood, actually, at times.
He is, yeah. He is a lovely boy, and he did very well for me. I mean, and he's changed over the years because when he first started, David was a really good reader of a game. He had no pace, but he was a good little footballer. But his reading of the game was the thing that stuck out more than anything. As he developed, he went from being a right back, he played a bit of left back for a while, and then became a centre half, and a really tough centre half.
Oh, he's a hard lad, isn't he?
Yeah, and very fit. And to his credit, I can remember we played Thamesmead. It was actually when Keith was the manager. Yeah. We played Thamesmead, and Thamesmead were up the top of the league, and we certainly weren't. But we smashed them 3-0. And Keith said, that left back's quick. Well, he was never quick. But David conned him into believing he was quick. That's how good he got.
Oh, that's lovely.
No, he's a smashed lad, David. I'm a good friend, and I love him to bits.
Well, I'll tell you what, if you could do me a favour, if you could phone Ricky and tell Ricky that I've been chasing him because I want to get Ricky back on. Please do, please do. Pass my number on. All right, well, we're a bit time sensitive on these, Kevin, but you're going to love...
Lovely to meet you.
You'll love this when this comes out, you really will. So, from me here at Belmont Banter, two guys chuckling over football, it's me here at Belmont Banter and Kevin Sugrue on the other end of Zoom. Both of us laughing. Well done, Kevin. It's been a really good beat. Thanks, mate. I'll speak to you soon.
I've enjoyed it.
Thank you very much. Cheers. Take care. Cheers. Later.
Whitstable Town Football Club's main sponsor is Fibertech UK Limited. They are providers of optical fibre services to the telecoms industry, specialising in optical fibre provision, local and long haul. We offer a full turnkey solution to our clients throughout London and the south of England. Contact us through the website for more details.
Your host, Tony Rouse, every week on Belmont Banter for news about local football in Kent and beyond.
I do hope that you've enjoyed today's episode of Belmont Banter. Don't forget there's a new episode out every week which comes out on a Sunday night, early Monday morning. And you can leave your suggestions for a guest to invite at the end. And leave a like, and don't forget to pass it on to all your mates. Cheers!